appointed by the mayor and city council to plan for the orderly growth and development of the community, to hold public hearings, and to make recommendations to the city council on planning items. Please note that the city council rules state that public hearings for planning cases shall be conducted solely by the Planning Commission. No additional public hearings shall be conducted by the city council. Tonight's case is tentatively scheduled to be heard by the city council next month. Agendas can be found at topeka.org. For cases that require public hearings, the procedure will be as follows. First, the planning staff will summarize the case. Next, we will hear from the applicant or their representative. Then we will receive public testimony. Public comments should be addressed solely to the chair and are limited to 4 minutes. Chris, take the roll, please.
Okay, Mr. Armstrong is out. Mr. Dean? Okay. Mr. Free? Okay. Mr. Kanar?
Here.
Mr. Kelp?
Here.
Ms. Lawson?
Present.
Ms. Messina?
Here.
Ms. Ringler?
Here.
And Mr. Warner?
Here.
We have 8 and a quorum.
All right, so the first item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the June 15th meeting. Are there, anybody have any corrections or modifications? All right, not seeing anyone has any. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Okay.
Second.
And who was the second?
Katrina Ringler.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Could we please take a vote?
Mr. Warner?
Aye.
Ms. Ringler?
Aye.
Ms. Messina?
Aye.
Ms. Lawson?
I abstain.
Mr. Kelp?
Aye.
Mr. Kanar?
Aye.
Mr. Freed?
Aye.
And Mr. Dean?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0 with 1 abstaining.
Great, thank you. Next would be the declaration of conflict or interest or ex parte communications by members of the commission or staff. Do we have any such declarations tonight? Okay, not seeing any hands or indication, so we will move on to the action items. And the one and only item is item CU20/02 by Evergy, requesting a conditional use permit. So I would ask the staff to go ahead and make their presentation.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. I hope you can hear me. This is a conditional use permit by Evergy Inc. It's case CU22. They have requested a CUP for a public utility structure type 2. Specifically, that's intended for an electric substation. The property is located along the south side of Southeast 6th Avenue. It lies between Golden and Southeast Highland and Southeast Golden. They would like, the CUP is needed so they can expand the existing substation that's on the west side of the property onto the east side of the property, which currently contains an automotive repair shop. The two properties are approximately 1.58 acres. The owner is proposing to rebuild and expand the existing substation. They have indicated that expansion is necessary to maintain and improve electric service within the area and the neighborhood. The existing substation on the western portion of the site has remained there since 1981. At that time, the property was zoned for single-family dwellings. In the zoning code at the time, that use was not specifically listed. It's presumed by staff that it may have been exempted in that pre-1992 zoning code. The automotive repair station on the parcel to the east has been there since 1977. At that time, it was zoned for heavy commercial uses. Both those properties were rezoned to X1 mixed use district following the adoption of the East Topeka plan. So they're currently zoned X1. In the X1 district, as well as other zoning districts, a conditional use permit is required for any type of public utility facility type 2. Properties to the immediate north are zoned X1 and their neighborhood retail. There's also a church there to the north. The property to the west is also retail and is zoned X1. Properties to the south are single family, larger lot, single family residential. And then the property to the immediate east of the automotive repair shop is a single family house and it is zoned X1 as well. One of the main zoning compliance issues with the site is related to the maximum structure height. In the X1 district, there is a standard height of 40 feet. The dimensional requirements section in the code allows exceptions to the height requirement for poles, towers, televisions, radio antenna support systems, and other apparatus, including flagpoles, for non-commercial purposes to be at a height not to exceed 62 feet. If you go to the handout in your packet, that's an attachment to the site plan, there is a structure, transformer structure, that is indicated to be range in height from 60 to 75 feet in height. That actual height has not yet been determined by Evergy, which this means that that height of that structure is over 62 feet in height. A variance is required from the Board of Zoning Appeals. A conditional use permit cannot grant a variance to any base zoning requirement. The pole itself does meet what is allowed in the code for the setback for utility poles. The code indicates that utility poles should be set back no less than 80% of the structure's height from the public right-of-way, and even at a maximum height of what they're requesting, it would meet the setbacks. Another zoning issue that could come up by a question is they are proposing to extend a 9-foot precast wall around the site, around the remainder of the site. It's similar to what's out there already. That is allowed in the fence regulations as fences in or upon public utility facilities may exceed the base standard of 8 feet if approved by the planning director. So that 9-foot tall fence is allowed in the zoning. Another part of the site plan, they have proposed a landscape plan that does demonstrate compliance with the basic requirements of 18235 landscape regulations. That includes a residential buffer that they'd be providing along the south property line where they're extending the stone wall. That they're going to offset that wall by 6 feet to leave a buffer for the residential property to the south. Staff's evaluated this according to your guidelines for conditional use permits evaluation. And some of the ways that does adhere to those guidelines in the code related to the site, the use does generate less traffic than the existing repair shop. It's intended to increase your electric service reliability in the neighborhood. No signage is proposed with this expansion. No sounds are generated. Additionally, by improving the site and expanding it, they will be improving the look of the substation from public street right-of-ways, such as the addition of landscaping along all property sides. They are also going to be rebuilding the commercial driveway entrances and adding a sidewalk along Highland, as well as rebuilding one of the driveways and closing off one driveway. The applicant was not required to hold a neighborhood information meeting due to current circumstances. They did mail out notices to surrounding property owners. They posted signage on the property indicating the date and time of the hearing. Planning department staff has not received any comments or questions from any of the surrounding property owners regarding either opposition or support. Staff evaluated this according to the golden factors in the code and has made, in order to keep the conditional use permit on track, staff has added a condition to condition in the staff report that a note be added to the CUP that would indicate the maximum height of transformers and dead-end structures shall not exceed 62 feet unless a variance, except to the exceptions to height limitations, is approved by the Topeka Board of Zoning Appeals. That would allow them to go ahead with the CUP and come back if a variance is needed later on down the road. As an alternative, you could also defer this tonight and they could come back with a PUD rezoning that would allow the Planning Commission to grant a variance to the height limitation. Staff is here to take any questions that you may have. Representatives of the applicant from PEC and Evergy are here to take any questions as well. Thank you.
Are there any questions of staff by members of the commission? Okay, I'm not hearing that anybody has a question, so I would invite the applicant or the representative to come forward.
Hi, my name's Chris Meyer. I'm with Evergy. Alex Darby was also able to join. He's a rep from PEC who's doing the most of the site work for us, and he's joining us from some remote location in Nebraska. Yeah, we have an option to buy that property to the east. From the transmission shop. We will not move forward with that purchase, obviously, unless we have that additional use permit in hand. The expansion is necessary for us to improve the site. There's plans to remove some older existing 69 kilovolt lines and replace them with 115 kilovolt and improve the service throughout northeast Topeka and downtowns. Alex and the group at PC has done a great job at working with the city, with Annie and Mike and the group, developing a landscape and entrance plans. Yeah, the only hang up is that 62 foot. Our standard dead end heights, which the dead end is a single pole tower that would be required to accept the transmission lines coming from outside, and our standards are either 65 or 75 foot. We'd be exceeding the 60 foot height no matter what we did. And Alex, I don't know if you had something you would like to add or would willing to answer any questions I can from the commission.
Are there any questions from members of the commission? All right, I'm not hearing any. Well, thank you very much. Are there any members? So I would now at this time open the public hearing for members of the public to comment. Is there anyone from the public that would want to comment on this proposal? Okay, I'm not hearing that there's anyone wishes to speak from the public, so that would close the public hearing. Are there any further questions of the commission, of the staff by the commission? Or any other comments regarding the development? Proposal,
Yes,
sorry.
I do have a question. I'm just confused on the 62 foot limit and them saying that they cannot meet that with a 65 or 70. Is there a reason for our 60 foot two, or is it better if we wait to do a PUD to get it in the height requirement for what they need? What's the reasoning behind that?
Mr. Chairman, would you like staff to respond to that, or were you wanting the applicant to respond?
Either. If staff's prepared, why don't you guys, if you have a thought, or if not, if you want the applicant.
I will take a shot at it. We did have a conversation with the applicant this afternoon about this. We actually looked at, we did a double check on the applicability of that 62-foot limit. And really, it does apply after we took a second look at it. That includes our legal counsel has advised us also that it applies. The condition that we're recommending that a variance be required in order to exceed 62 feet is a condition. It's a valid condition, but we should be aware that to obtain a variance is not an easy matter necessarily. It's not a matter of the Board of Zoning Appeals just finding out there's no harm. It requires that they make 5 findings, 2 of which are pretty difficult to meet. One of those is that there's something, the variance would arise out of something very unique or unusual about the site. And it's hard to make that case, I think, here. That would be some physical condition typically, or size or something like that about the site that's unusual. I think that's a tough criterion to meet for a variance. The other one would be that the variance arises out of a hardship specific to this situation, an unnecessary hardship. So I think, just so you know, a variance is not a sure thing. If the applicant wants more certainty, they would have the option of pulling this back, probably just do a revision of the application, and we'd re-advertise it and revise it so it's a plan unit development master plan and not a CUP site plan. They could take pretty much the same information that's on the site plan and put it on a master plan with the added to that, the allowing the height to exceed 62 feet, allowing it to go up to 65 or 75 feet. Or they could revise their plans and make an adjustment to the height of the structure so it meets the 62-foot height limit. As I understand, the structure is a pre-engineered, prefabricated, manufactured structure, so it's not custom designed for this purpose. It's not. It's always difficult if you're in that situation. The other thing is, this is something we can look at our next zoning code update, and we don't know where the 62 feet came from. It's pretty specific, so it doesn't seem like it's just a number that's arbitrary that came out of thin air. It must relate to something specific. We just don't know what that is. It's been in the code for quite a while. So that's some background or some options, some thinking from staff.
Anyone else on the commission have a question?
Mr. Chair, this is Katrina Ringler. I have a question, maybe for staff. Which would be well, I guess I have a 2-part question. If we moved ahead tonight and the applicant moved ahead with the appeal, is that a much longer process than them just going back and reapplying for the PUD? Or is that, and I guess the other question is, if we move forward tonight and they went through the appeal process and they did not get approved for the variance, could they come back and apply for a PUD?
Well, the first part of your question of the timing, I think if they applied for a variance, if they waited until they would naturally wait until the conditional use permit was approved by the governing body, which would be in August under normal circumstances. Then they would apply at the end of August, and it would go to the Board of Zoning Appeals then in October. So that would be the timing of that if that's how that proceeded. If they revise their application, we would have to re-advertise. And I see that going to the Planning Commission, not in August, but September. And then it would also, under those circumstances, go to the city council in October for a decision under normal circumstances. The other thing, the applicant probably has to weigh in here, is they have the land under an option, and that option probably has an expiration date. But that's a question for Mr. Meyer to answer.
Yeah, and I don't know the details of that. I know that there is a date, and I'm not exactly sure if the current landowner will hold fast to that, or if he'll allow us to make revisions to that. I don't know. I couldn't tell you the answer to that right now.
So if I may ask a question, Mr. Meyer, so even if we approve the CUP tonight, would your client not be exercising their option until they had a determination from the appeals?
That is my understanding, yeah. They've asked for extra time just to, for them to get resettled in a different location, but they cannot move forward until we, have the CUP in hand. Or we can't move forward either.
Well, you'd have the CUP, but you wouldn't have the variance for the polls. So would that?
Okay. Well, that may be enough for them. I don't deal in the real estate part of it, but so I can't answer that question. Sure.
Are there any other questions for members of the commission?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'm in favor of the CUP. I do note in the staff report that the height is still being determined by Evergy, so it's not a fixed figure. The 62 feet that's in the regulations must be there for a reason. So I'm in favor of the CUP as submitted by staff, and if Evergy wants to exceed the 62 feet, then their course of action is to go to the BZA and get a variance if they can. And I guess if they can't, then they would come back and look at some alternative if they're insistent upon exceeding the 62 feet.
Thank you. Anyone else on the commission? Questions or comments?
Yeah, Mr.
Well, I
Chairman.
guess that was my second question to the staff was, is that an option? If their variance is not approved, they could come back and ask for a PUD?
Yes.
Where we would have a little bit more control?
It is an option. That is, Commissioner Ringler, that is an option. They can do that. I think that there is a limit. Do you have to wait a year before you apply, make the same application? But that would not be the same.
Yeah, it'd be a different application.
It'd be a different application. So there's no limit on, there's no year delay because it's a different application. So yes, they can do that.
Okay. Commissioner Warner, did you have a question?
Yes, I was just curious, was the PUD option presented to the applicant at the pre-application portion when they came in originally? I'm just curious.
We did not realize how tall the structures would be until after they submitted the application and we saw the layout structure, the layout plan. So I don't think we were aware how tall all the structures would be at the pre-application meeting.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Meyer, I would ask, in light of the conversation, I take it you all aren't withdrawing this and thinking about the PUD, you're choosing to go ahead with a conditional use permit at this time and seeing what happens after that.
I think that's the way we'll make something work, I guess.
All right.
I had a really nice conversation with Mr. Hall earlier, and I appreciate him calling me back because I had several questions about the 62-foot limit. We have several substation sites throughout the city, and many of those have tower heights greater than 62 feet. So I don't know, I didn't know where the cutoff was or if those were granted variances in the past or what happened. So there was some confusion. He answered a lot of questions for me, and I appreciate that.
All right, thank you. All right, anyone else on the commission have any comments regarding the application for the conditional use permit?
Mr. Chairman, I just have one more. Just out of curiosity, because I don't know this, if the exception is approved for the variance, will that discredit it at all or cause concern for it to be reevaluated for a higher height for that variance in the future, if that makes sense to staff?
Commissioner Messina, no, it will not, because it's a condition of approval.
Okay.
So the CUP, if it gets approved as recommended here, they come back for a variance, and the variance will address, concerns about impact to adjacent property and all of that. So no, it'll be done at that point.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, are you ready for a motion?
I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move approval subject to the conditions set out in the staff report.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Kopp. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Commissioner Dean. Take a vote, please.
Mr. Warner,
Aye.
Ms. Rangler,
Aye.
Ms. Messina,
Aye.
Ms. Lawson,
Aye.
Mr. Kalp,
Aye.
Mr. Canar,
Aye.
Mr. Freed,
Aye.
and Mr. Dean.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. Next
you.
would, you're welcome. Next would be any communications to the commission.
Mr. Chair, I do not have any. All that we can say tonight is we do have applications for next month, so we know there will be an August meeting for sure. But other than that, I don't have any, unless anybody has any questions.
All right. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, hold on. I'm sorry, Mr. Kalp.
Mr. Chairman, if you could just real quickly, if I might ask a question of the planning commissioners. Tomorrow evening, the Topeka City Council takes up a couple matters that I think touch on the work and responsibilities of the Planning Commission. And I wanted to ask the commissioners about one of those matters. The housing study that was presented at a previous meeting is in, I guess, final form or almost final form, ready for adoption by the City Council. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to look at it yet, but it's 150 some pages, and it is, I think it's an exceptional document. It's got a great deal of information that directly relates to land use and specifically residential development in Topeka. It has a lot of information, strategies, goals, objectives. And my thought that I wanted to run past you all was when we do a staff report, when a staff report is presented to us that relates to a rezoning, for example, reference is always made back to the comprehensive plan to see if the proposed development, rezoning, or what have you is consistent or compatible or incompatible with the adopted comprehensive plan. And that's an important piece of the staff report. What I'm wondering is whether the Planning Commission would be receptive to a directive to staff that in the future, I mean, assuming the housing study is adopted by the City Council, would we be receptive to directing staff to, in all future rezonings or other applications that come before us that touch on residential development, make a reference to the housing study, incorporate it into the staff report, if they find it's relevant to the particular application, and make a determination or recommendation to us as to whether or not the proposed development, rezoning, CUP, whatever it is compatible or incompatible with the adopted housing study report. And I offer that up favorably because I think it's a way to keep the housing study alive and in front of us and have ongoing legitimacy. We all know lots of studies get done and get put on the shelf. I think it's really important to visit that housing study again, over time as we talk about affordable housing and trying to fill the gaps in the housing stock that this community has. So I've not visited with Bill about this. I wanted to put it in front of the Planning Commission just to see if folks are receptive to the idea of using the housing study in this way.
Well, I guess first I'd ask Mr. Feinder if you have a response or what was your intent if the housing study gets passed?
Well, the housing study is technically not part of the comprehensive plan. So although we would have very high involvement with it from a staff perspective, it's something that we are shepherding to the goal line here and definitely are going to be engaged in its implementation. I don't know if many of you know this. The city, the city manager recently dismantled the neighborhood relations department. Within that department is a housing division. That housing division is now with the planning department. So by virtue of that reorganization, which basically just took place last week, we are part and parcel of housing solutions in terms of what the city programs are and overall interest in seeing this study be implemented. We're going to, and just so you know, we would take that study and come back to you probably with some zoning code amendments that will help with our overall missing middle and ways to increase more aging in place and neighborhood cycles with our housing inventory. So I do expect you to be involved or at least see that. But I'll revert back to my original comment that it is technically not a part of the comprehensive plan. And so we would not have any, we wouldn't want to necessarily tag that in our staff reports. We have no problem putting some mention of it, particularly in our analysis or in the upfront part about if this case or if the case would relate to the housing study and how. I mean, it's not. It is on our forefront of our agenda now, and so it's not a huge deal to do that with our staff reports. We would probably not. We would just do it a little bit differently than making it part of our analysis.
Well, to be clear, Mr. Chairman and Bill, the fact that it's not a part of the comprehensive plan doesn't preclude us from considering it in the course of looking at a rezoning, a CUP, or what have you. But you see any downside to that, Bill? I mean, what I'm trying to do is give significance on an ongoing basis to what I think is a really good study that the city has put together, paid for, and has some very sound objectives. No, I mean, like I said, I don't think I said there was a downside. I think we're going to be bringing you, and maybe that's
what I see is to develop some directive, which we are doing already, to look at our code, look at our policies of our comprehensive plan, look at our zoning code, our subdivision code, and bring back some recommendations for you to consider amendments to. That would be that would be, to me, a more meaningful implementation post adoption of this study.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I could, and I'll get off of this, I don't want to take people's time up, but if a hypothetical, if somebody came forward with a proposal to build some multifamily senior citizen housing, which we have a short supply of in this community, as identified by the housing study, why wouldn't we want to allow that developer the advantage if it involved a rezoning or whatever action that would come before the Planning Commission and then the City Council? Why wouldn't we want to make note of the fact that that proposed development is endorsed by or compatible with and advances the objectives of the housing study? That's my last comment, Mr. Chairman.
Well, and I guess what I'm hearing, Commissioner Cobb, is where it's relevant. You believe that the staff should note that to the commission so we can take it into account in consideration. And it sounds like, to the extent where that might be relevant, the planning staff would do that. I guess my own feeling, at least, not wanting to jump in since it just came up tonight for the first time, I wouldn't want to establish a new protocol or procedure, but I guess I don't know that it's going to be relevant in every decision. So to require it to be cited in every decision, at least at this point, my opinion is I'm not sure. Then that may make it, if we see it a lot and it doesn't have any relevance, then it becomes where people just stop paying attention to it. And so maybe it's better to wait and see and let it flow and then see how it goes. But again, we can play around with this since this came up for the first time tonight, and maybe in August, if it passes, then we can have a further conversation about whether we want to make something on a more permanent basis and a regular basis.
That sounds very good, Mr. Chairman. And my premise was that the plan would be cited in a staff report only when staff has made a determination that the particular development, rezoning, whatever, is relevant to the plan, and the plan relevant to the development application itself.
Gotcha. Appreciate that.
So thank you for your time.
All right. Any other comments, questions, concerns?
Yeah, if I can wrap up my thought on what was just said is if I was not clear, let me make it clear. We plan to go beyond what you're asking for.
Okay.
We plan to bring back amendments and changes to our policies. We have already started that. So we will be coming back later this year with those suggestions to you to see what you think. So it'll go beyond just a staff report mentions. I guess that's what I was trying to get across. So apologize if that didn't come across.
No, no. You came across earlier, and so I appreciate that. All right. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? If not, Mr. Kanar, would you like to again make the motion to adjourn?
Just making sure I didn't hear anybody jump in.
Yeah.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Mr. Dean seconds. All in favor? I guess motion. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.